What the hell are we doing as a culture? On every single front, we are failing, and it is utterly disgraceful. Back when I was in college, my editing professor told the class that Adobe moving to a subscription model was pretty much the end for everything that we enjoy in life. And I thought he was insane. I openly mocked him. I argued with him. I was like, it's not. It's like, it's nice because I don't have to spend $300 on every program every year, every other year, just to keep up with the newest ones. You know, I pay a flat fee and it's fine. He's like, yeah, but you pay that $300 and then you own it. And if you want to upgrade, you can. If you don't want to, it's still like 5 years ago's version is not that different from today's. He's like, this you're going to be paying for the rest of your life, and everyone is going to follow their example. And I thought he was crazy. Fast forward, he was right about everything. I mean, I heard a story about a printer that if you don't pay a monthly subscription, they will limit how many pages you can print in a month. And I'm like, what are we doing? This guy was just like, Tesla shut down his car while he was driving because they didn't like what he said or some nonsense. I don't know. But it's just like, why can't we own anything anymore? If you buy digital media, they can revoke it whenever they want because you're buying a license to use it and not the actual product. I feel like every which way you go, we are being taken advantage of by society, by the people in power, and we have no real control over it. Video games make you buy DLC, like you're buying part of a game. The first game I bought for my PS4, Friday the 13th, discontinued. The only phone game I played tapped out, discontinued, can't access it anymore. Like, why can't we own anything? Why is nothing ours anymore? And then on top of that, it just feels like everything is milking us for all we're worth. I guess I should kind of get to the point of this video, which it's not to do with subscription models, but it does have to do with milking us for all we're worth and taking advantages and shorting us. So, I just saw Strangers Chapter 2. Those of you who have seen this movie probably understand why I'm annoyed. Those of you who have not yet, spoilers. You should probably turn off this video because I will be spoiling the ending of the movie. And they're not the first ones to do it. This seems to be like a common thing. Like, was it a couple years ago? We had 3 movies do this exact same thing. So the ending of this movie, spoilers alert. Again, I'm not going to say it again. Spoilers. It's like the middle of the movie. It doesn't feel like an ending. Nothing is wrapped up. Nothing is resolved. And it just says to be continued. And it's like, what are we, a fucking cliffhanger on a TV show? No, this is not the season finale of a Star Trek show, all right? Like, this is a movie. I paid money to come here. Well, I didn't. I have AMC Stubs card. I used one of my free movies for this week to come here to watch this, and you don't give me a full movie. And yes, I know it's a trilogy. I knew that from before the first chapter 1 came out. I understand, but you know, trilogies used to finish. They used to wrap up every movie. Back to the Future 3. I mean, Back to the Future 2. Yes, it ends setting up the third movie. 100%. I understand that. But the plot of the second movie was resolved. It ended. Part 2 is a full movie with a, hey, there's another one, check that out. Empire Strikes Back, most people's favorite Star Wars movie. A full movie. It's the middle of a trilogy, but it's its own movie. It stands on its own 2 feet. A movie should always have a resolution. It should not end in the middle of the action. What are we doing? How is this suddenly okay? I just don't understand why we have gotten to this place where people are like, well, okay, I have 2 movies to tell my story. So I'm just going to tell half the story here and then the other half there. Wicked. Let's talk about Wicked. Loved it. That was great. They took a play and they broke it into 2 separate movies. But hey, guess what? That first movie stands on its own while setting up the second one because it ended at a nice resolution point. It ended at a point in the movie where the audience can take a break and feel like, oh, what I was watching, this has some kind of resolution. It doesn't end the story, but it resolves this particular part. And the crazy thing is, like, the two examples that I think of that completely shit the bed on this is, what was it, the second Spider-Verse movie. I love the first one. I even love the second one. But the ending that they chose was so bad. And the crazy thing is, if they ended it like 5 minutes earlier, it would have been perfect. If they ended it with Miles being captured and finding out that the Prowler of that universe is that universe's Miles Morales, that would have been a satisfying ending. That would have been a place where you've been like, whoa, and it would have left you wanting more. That would have given you the ending that you wanted. Instead, that movie goes on for like 5 more minutes, builds the team together, and then they jump in action, and it ends on the jump in action. No, that's not satisfying. That's like, okay, I'm gearing up for this next scene, and then it stops. You ended the movie at the beginning of the next scene. That scene should have been the beginning of the next movie. This is not rocket science. What is satisfying for the audience? That was not satisfying. 5 minutes earlier, that would have been satisfying. You fucked it up. Strangers 2 has the same thing. Now, I'll grant you, Strangers 2, where the satisfying ending would have been is a little too early in the movie, but you could have rearranged some things and made it a full-length movie and then ended it there. So the movie ends with her, spoilers, again, I'm not going to keep saying spoilers, so spoilers. The movie ends with her, the girl, the main actress, the Riverdale girl, killing one of the strangers. And then we find a flashback, which, that's a tangent I'm going to get onto in a minute, but we'll circle back to that. Killing one of them, and then is like watching as the other two hold the body and kind of mourn, and then we get a flashback as to how the strangers, at least how 2 of the strangers, got started as kids. Now, but it's like, this isn't, nothing here is resolved, nothing here is satisfying, nothing here, it just feels like, okay, so what's next? And that's a cool feeling for like a TV show when, you know, you're coming back next week. But it's not a good feeling for, I have to wait, what, a year, 2 years to find, I by that point, I'm not going to care. But there was another point in the movie. And also, and here's the part too, is this is not going to be rewatchable. No one is going to watch this movie over and over and over again. This is going to be no one's favorite movie because it's not a full movie. It's half a movie. Back to the Future 2 is a full movie. Empire Strikes Back, like I said, is most people's favorite Star Wars movie. These are full movies. They're in the middle and they're setting up what comes next, of course. But they're full movies. You can watch Empire Strikes Back and you don't have to watch Return of the Jedi right afterwards. You're not going to be like, oh my God, where's the rest? Where's the conclusion? Because the movie resolves. It's a dark, gloomy resolution, but it's a resolution. Same with Infinity War. It's they lost, but it's an ending. The Strangers is not an ending. It's the ending of a scene. Not even that. It's in the middle of a scene. That's what drives me insane too. You ended in the middle of a scene. Like, so does she get up and run? Do they look up and see her? We're not following anyone else in the story, so we know you're not going to cut away. Like, you ended in the middle of a scene. That is so stupid. Now, there was, like I said, there was a scene where they could have ended it and it would have been satisfying. So at a certain point in the movie, a little past the halfway point, I feel like. I've only seen this movie once, like I said. Probably won't watch it again until I go see the new one. But there's a scene about a little past halfway through the movie where she's back at the house from the first movie. She gets changed, put on her old clothes, and then she thinks the strangers are there. Turns out that it's a state police officer from Maternal Affairs trying to look into why these murders are being covered up. And she asks him to get her out of there. He says yes. He puts her in the car, and then before he gets into the driver's side, he gets shot and killed. Now, if you had him put her in the car and you end the movie there with her getting in the car and him shutting the door, and that's the ending of the movie, that would have been a satisfying resolution. And then the next movie, you start it with him getting shot in the head and then do everything else you were planning on doing. But at least then you feel some resolution. Oh, she got out of there. You don't actually see her get out of there, and that's how you retcon it in the next movie. But at least there's a resolution. There's a conclusion. You're not in the middle of the hunt. You're not telling a story and then halfway through the story going, I think we're going to call it a day. That is what is annoying. If you have a resolution like the Spider-Verse movie, if Miles got caught and found out who the Prowler was and found out that he was wrong about everything, that is a conclusion. That is a resolution. That is like, oh shit. Like, if but for different choices, that could have been him. That is an ending to the story because it resolves what was being talked about. But them jumping to the rescue doesn't resolve anything. There's no conclusion. It's not a full movie. No one is ever going to watch that movie by itself. No one is ever going to watch Strangers 2 by itself. Moving forward, they'll only watch these movies if they're planning on watching the third one right afterwards. And that is stupid. It's stupid. Now, I'm not saying like, okay. Like, and if you wanted the next movie to take place, like I said, you could have him killed and then you start the movie right there. Halloween 2 is a perfect example of this. Where the ending of Halloween, everything was resolved. Michael Myers is presumed dead, but then his body's missing, so dun dun dun. But everything's kind of resolved. Then Jamie Lee Curtis is going to the hospital, and then Michael Myers follows her to the hospital and starts everything back up. So it's that same night. It takes place right afterwards. But the first movie resolved. And the second movie just decided to pick up the pieces moments later. They should have done that with this. That would have been satisfying. That would be how you tell engaging stories. This is not it. You do not end in the middle of a scene, in the middle of a story where nothing is resolved and nothing is put to bed. It frustrates me because it feels so lazy. You want to tell a trilogy? Cool, tell a trilogy. I love trilogies. But the way you tell a trilogy is that you have one massive story that you're trying to tell, and then you have 3 smaller stories inside of them that tell the larger story. Yes, the larger story goes on through all 3, without a doubt. No one's saying they don't. But you have fully contained stories inside of that fixes it. I feel like we're living in the age of prestige television, and I think it's messed up everything. So you look at shows that were serialized back in the day. You have Buffy, you have Deep Space Nine, you even have The Sopranos. You have shows like these that tell an overarching story. Breaking Bad is another good one. Dexter. And then they have episodes inside them, right? But each episode is its own thing that pushes the bigger story forward, right? You could watch any episode of these shows, and yeah, maybe you won't get the big lore thing, but it's a self-contained story that sometimes pushes a larger story forward. But now you have shows where it's a 10-hour movie. Every episode is just telling the next part of the story, and the big story is the only story that you have. And to a degree, it works, but you're coming back week after week. It falls apart when you have to wait years between those stories. And don't get me wrong, television is doing this years between stories too. I love Stranger Things. I don't care about the next season. I could care less. I'll watch it probably, but I don't care because it's been so long. I don't even remember what the hell happened in the last season. It's been so long. Why are we putting so much pause in between everything? It's just, it's exhausting. It's exhausting living in this timeline. Keep in mind, this is all irrelevant. The actual issues that are happening in this country right now, it's easier just to stress about this stuff because, my God. But let's talk about the other thing about Strangers 2 that annoys me. The original movies, and even the first movie in this trilogy, work because they're strangers. The whole premise of this series is that it's random people committing wanton acts of violence because they can. There's no rhyme, there's no reason. They're just bad people doing bad things. That's the entire point. Why are you doing this? Because you were home. That's the line that everybody knows. There's not supposed to be an actual reason while they're doing this, right? It's supposed to just be random. You were at the wrong place at the wrong time, so the wrong people found you and did something horrible. That's the premise. That's what makes these movies good. That's what makes them engaging, exciting. But this new movie, and I get chapter 1 was by the same people, so I guess this was always the plan. But they looked at the Halloween franchise, and they were like, which part of this franchise should we follow in the footsteps of? And they were like, Rob Zombie. Michael Myers is a badass because he's just crazy. There's no rhyme or reason to what he does. He just kills. And yes, there's been some explanation like the cult and it's a curse and yada yada yada. But still, he's just a killer. But then Rob Zombie comes along and is like, let's explain it. Let's dive into his childhood and figure out why he does this. And I'm just like, do we care? Why? Why do we need to know this? We don't need to know this. You explaining why he does the stuff he does and you diving into his childhood trauma makes him a less interesting character. And that is what they're doing in The Strangers. Let's dive in. Let's make the strangers not strangers. Let's get to know them. Let's befriend the strangers. I don't want to sympathize with them. I don't want to understand their motivation. That's not what this movie is. This is not Friday the 13th, where we understand why Jason Voorhees does what he does. We can even sympathize with him to a degree. That was set up from the jump. It's not called The Strangers, where the whole premise is that it's just random. What are we doing? Why are we doing these things? Why is this the reality that we're choosing to live in? Finish a movie and don't butcher the entire premise of the movie. These things are not hard to do. Bloody hell. Can we go back to the 80s? I don't know. I just said it in another video. Can we go back to the 90s? That's my decade. And from the 90s. But I miss the movies from the 80s. I'm exhausted. I don't know. Give us legends. Don't. Whatever. I'm just tired.